This is episode 269 of the Reel Me In, a movie podcast. On this week's episode, Chase and Joel will take a look at the newest addition in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, known as Captain Marvel. Joel will have a special segment that he will do after the review, and then maybe some trailers, maybe some news, all that and more on today's Reel Me In. What is going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Reel Me In, a movie podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Chase Lee, and if you are new to the show, welcome. If you were looking for a movie podcast online where just two white male critics just talking about movies, then you have reached your destination. Of course, we won't give the user rating a thumbs down when we haven't seen the movie, but we will try our best. What we typically do on the show, if you are new, is we'll go over some movie news and some trailers, and we'll review movies that come out on said weekend, whether they be big releases, smaller movies, combined of the two. Whatever we decide in terms of the schedule is what we will do. And then, sometimes my co-host will have a special segment, whether it's dealing with Oscar-type movies or if he wants to talk about a specific topic. It's kind of up to him. He kind of steers the ship with that. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. Before we begin, hand it over to my co-host. If you guys could give this episode a like, share it around, and just really kind of help us out and spread the word about this movie podcast that you guys just love listening to. Also, before I switch it over, as you can tell from my voice, I've had some chest congestion stuff and maybe some allergies running around, so you guys will get like Barry White voice today, and I'll try not to sniffle as much, but so you will get deeper voice Chase Lee today, so I hope you guys enjoy that. So on today's episode, as stated in the intro, we will go over Captain Marvel, the newest edition of the MCU. We're super excited about that. You guys know how big of a fan I am, and Joel's starting to come around as a new fan, and so I cannot wait to discuss it because a lot of people were going to downvote it before they even saw it, and then it came out and there was a lot of mixed reviews and stuff. So what do we think of it? Well, you'll just have to tune in and find out. And speaking of the co-host over there, Joel Copling, how are we doing this week? It's another Marvel movie. It's South by Southwest is happening right now as we speak, and we're kind of a little sad because the Us world premiere is actually happening as of right now 25 minutes ago here in Austin, Texas. But we are 3 hours away, so we aren't anywhere close to it. So, Joel, what's been going on in your world, sir?
Oh, not much. And yeah, I think that Us, the movie, actually starts either in 5 minutes or in 35 minutes. I can't remember if I know that they spend a little while before the movie introducing it and stuff at film festivals like that. But yeah, super sad to miss that. I can't wait for that movie. As for me, pretty good. Just kind of working, watching movies, kind of taking a break from reviews. Although I will have a written review of Captain Marvel this week for sure, so nobody needs to be nervous about that. I'll have one, should be by tomorrow morning. Other than that, I watched half of Leaving Neverland this week. I haven't watched the second half because I haven't had time. It's also best to give something like that a break whenever you've watched one half of it, probably.
I agree.
It's pretty powerful stuff so far, though. I idolized Michael Jackson in my childhood, and for a while, I know that these allegations have been floating around since the early '90s, but I was not sheltered from them. I probably just wasn't aware of them for a while until they really started to become news in the early 2000s, like came back around and were reported again. That's when I became aware of them, and so of course a lot of that kind of disappeared, and now this really damning documentary, 2-part documentary, it's pretty amazing. I mean, the one part that I've seen, and yeah, that's probably the most significant thing I've watched this week. I've been rewatching a lot of stuff for other projects, and just kind of working. Not much has happened in home life in terms of stuff away from my hobbies. But what about you? What's been going on with you?
Well, just another normal week. Not really, actually. On top of being sick, my girlfriend, she got a new job, so she had to do some training. So she flew out to Georgia this week, and she's got to do the same thing next week. So I've been home by myself with the two dogs that we have. One of which isn't ours, but I've been with her for years. So her dog gets a little restless, and so it was hard to sleep throughout the week. And, of course, being sick did not help anything at all. And then coming home and not really knowing what to do with my life or my soul was a little concerning. So, but I did watch a little something this week. I did the same thing as Joel. I watched part 1 of the Leaving Neverland. Man, even if it was fake, false, whatever, I tend to believe it, but at the same time, when you listen to that, you can't tell me that you were just not like shaken to your core when you listen to these stories with sheer horror.
It's stranger than fiction. It's the definition of that.
Right.
Of that
it's so crazy. The type of stories that came out of those guys' mouths. It's just as Joel put it on Facebook, it makes you want to take a shower. And so I'm sure whenever she gets back, we'll watch part 2. But so since she was gone, I ventured off into Amazon Prime. Now, typically when I will watch a movie, I'll kind of look at my queues, whether it be Hulu, Netflix, HBO, Amazon. I'll just kind of go from there. Well, I was on Amazon Prime, and I didn't go through my queue, and so I was like, okay, let me see what's in the horror section. I love me some horror films. So let's kind of see what is out there. And, excuse me. I saw they put Dolls up there, and I had never seen Dolls, but I remember there wasn't a Blockbuster in my hometown, but there was a video rental store of this sorts, kind of like a family video or whatever. And I remember seeing Dolls in the horror section. It was the cover of the doll holding the eyeballs, and this film came out 2 years. It was like 2 or 3 years before Child's Play, and then Child's Play came out like 1 or 2 years before Puppet Master. So it was like this weird, section of time where Hollywood producers were like, "Killer dolls are on the loose. Let's make a movie about them," or puppets or whatever. So I saw Dolls, and I gotta tell you, as much as I love Child's Play, and I love the whole Chucky franchise and how it started out as a straight up horror slasher film and then dove into horror comedy. It's perfect for Brad Dourif and that personality. I actually like Dolls. Is it really badly acted and kind of like terribly written? Yes, but the effects are what kind of struck me the most, because in Child's Play they use a lot of stop motion, claymation type of things, and then they'll do maybe some wide shots of like an actual person in a suit. It's just they did a lot of different things, but like this one, they use straight up just like stop motion with the dolls and everything. And there was something like disturbingly creepy about the way they looked and they smiled and stuff. So I thought for like the horror aspect, it delivered way better than Child's Play, but Child's Play is still a better movie overall. But that was a interesting watch. So I saw Dolls, and if you were curious to see what the first one was before Child's Play hit big, it is on Amazon Prime. So that's all I watched this week, and then of course Leaving Neverland Part 1, and it's been just kind of vacant. And of course Captain Marvel last night. I'll be seeing it again tomorrow with my girlfriend and her family, but pretty light week, just like with you, Joel. Joel, did you ever see? Have you ever seen Dolls?
I haven't. I've seen Puppet Master, actually.
Oh, okay.
Now that you mentioned it, that's one that I've seen. I've seen most of the movies in that franchise, actually, just because they showed on the old school Sci-Fi Channel.
Oh, okay.
When it was SCIFI.
Are you a fan of the killer doll genre?
It's so much fun.
Right.
Just something so small and innocent suddenly becoming unstoppable. It's fun. And Dolls, I'm interested. I don't know how easy it is to find. I mean, it's on Prime, on physical copy. I'm glad to know that it's on Prime. I know that the DVD has been long out of print. I work at a store, where we have a fairly significantly deep system of movies, and it's in there, of course. But I think the DVD was an import, which makes it a bit harder to find in the States. And so I haven't looked it up in a while, but I know the last time I looked it up, it was for a customer, and I don't think any of our stores had it. So it's kind of hard to find. I'm pretty sure there was a Blu-ray re-release relatively recently ago, but even that's kind of not common to find. It's one of those, so I'm glad that they put it on Prime, because obviously, otherwise kind of lost. But yeah, certainly interested in watching that. I know that it kind of did predate, and is famous for predating Child's Play, and doing something similar to what that movie did first, and so yeah, it's interesting. So
yeah, I to be honest with you, I think you'll hate it, but I think you'll really appreciate 1985 special effects that they went for, because I'm telling you, some of the animatronics on the actual dolls with the faces and the smiles and the way the eyes shifted and stuff, like like when we watch movies like It or like The Conjuring or Annabelle, like there's some creepy imagery, but most of it is CGI. Not a lot of it is actual practical effects anymore. This was like straight up practical effects, and there was something, like I said, a little bit more unnerving about it. Definitely in a more playful manner, because I mean these are things that are literally 6 inches high. But I thought it was it gave me more, I guess, nightmare fuel than Child's Play did. So there is that. But very. So when we have our next episode, I have a whole nother week by myself, so I'm sure I'll watch something crazy again, and you guys will be like, "Man, where are you finding this stuff?" A very interesting Wednesday night of my week. As you can tell, I'm super eventful and not boring at all. So there wasn't really that much that happened this week, Joel. We were talking about it before we recorded, and there wasn't really that many trailers that dropped, because we told you guys, at the end of last year, that we will cover first trailers only. Now, that does not include teasers. If it's literally just a teaser, 40 seconds, doesn't really show much, we'll discuss it, but we'll really kind of dive into that first trailer. They go anywhere beyond that, we don't want to talk about it, because we got to move on and talk about other stuff. Believe it or not, there was a lot of second trailers that dropped this week with like Byrne and what was the other one? I forgot what else would drop, but Byrne was like the big one this week, and it was trailer number 2. We've already talked about Byrne. So the only trailer that dropped this week in terms of a first trailer that I feel like is going to be a real Oscar contender, it was one of the biggest purchased movies at Sundance this year. We have to talk about it, because if it's going to go down the route of like a Big Sick, which they are heavily promoting it in the trailers, because Amazon Studios released both of them, or is releasing late night. I had to discuss it. So it is late night. This is the one where Emma Thompson, she is a late night host. She's a little older, and so she kind of has like that David Letterman flavor to her. And there's a new writer that kind of comes in, played by Mindy Kaling, and she kind of disrupts the whole writing team, because it's mainly just a bunch of dudes. And she kind of tells her, excuse me, that you're going out of fashion. You need to kind of make your jokes more modern and stuff. And so they kind of strike this friendship. And Mindy Kaling wrote it, and this was one of the highest purchased films. It might be the highest. I need to look into it, but I think it is one of the highest at like 20-something million. It's crazy how much money Amazon threw down. But then again, if you're Netflix and Amazon, apparently you have like this, imaginary bank that just never goes out or anything, even with debt. So yeah, as the trailer itself, Joel, I gotta be honest with you, man, I'm super excited for it. I remember when The Big Sick came out, and I watched it because it came out during the summer, the same time that I want to say like Big Night and like Late Sick, and I keep mixing the two, so sorry. Late Night comes out June 7th. That is the same weekend as X-Men Dark Phoenix. How cool would that be if late night, I know it's not going to come nowhere close to it, but if it was like second place, but like it made a huge amount of money that really kind of took away from the Dark Phoenix box office a little bit, because I don't think a lot of people are interested in Dark Phoenix. I'm one of the crazy people that but I know most people aren't, but it's going to do well. I think it'll have the same effect as The Big Sick. It looks like a really great dramedy. It looks like, really great performances from Emma and Mindy, and I always like Mindy's writing style. Sorry, guys. I mean, this is going to happen throughout the show, so just bear with me. One of the best shows that has ever been created on this earth, Joel and I both agree on this, is The Office. And, her and, like, BJ Novak, they wrote a bunch of episodes on the show, and, I pay close attention to that when I'm watching these episodes. I'm like, okay, they wrote this episode. Let me see how their comedic styling is. Let me see how their story structure is. Let me see how potent the dialogue is. Let me just see all that. And she's a really good writer, and of course, she did the Mindy Project and everything. So I'm excited to see this movie, Joel. It looks really sweet, touching, funny, dramatic, just this all-encompassing type of movie that you want in theaters, and that's what The Big Sick was. It was all four of those things, and so I'm really stoked for it. I think that might be, when we do our summer movie preview, it might be my top 3 for the summer, just because I always love the kind of like SNL or late night type of like subject matter. That stuff fascinates me on the process of doing one of those shows, or like a late night show or whatever. I love the process, and so if you can have a movie about that, I know it's like fiction and everything, but it is going to be based in some type of truth in terms of like how Colbert does it, or Myers does it, or whatever. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, only significant trailer to come out this week, but it was definitely a good one to do. So, Joel, I know we've talked about this, but, I'm sure even if you didn't do your rule of not watching trailers, I'm sure just from the way I described it and everything, you're probably just like, yeah, I kind of expected that, and, I was going to see it regardless. But, does this get you excited, and do you think it's going to be a real contender during the summer?
Yeah, I mean, it could be one of those things. I can't remember. Was The Big Sick nominated for Best Screenplay?
It was nominated for Best Screenplay.
It was. Okay, so if they play it right, they could potentially have another one. I've been hearing really good things about this out of Sundance, and
maybe possibly a supporting actress for Emma.
Oh yeah, maybe so. I mean, she's been nominated a lot. The Academy likes her, so yeah, for sure. That's a distinctive possibility. Obviously, I'm excited for this. I've been excited just hearing the concept, and I'm very excited. I'm surprised you didn't cover another trailer.
Which trailer?
Midsummer.
Oh wow, that did drop. Okay, so breaking news, folks. There's another trailer that dropped this week. Yeah. Well, and the thing is, like, they dropped on Tuesday.
I didn't watch it. I just know it dropped.
Right. They dropped on Tuesday. So A24. I've been sick and kind of loopy all week, so it drop your trailers towards the end of the week. Yeah. So Joel's correct. My bad. So the newest film from Ari Aster and A24, Ari Aster being the director of my favorite movie of last year, Hereditary, now Midsummer. Wow. Joel has got some really great, discipline, because I jumped on this trailer as soon as A24 dropped it, and just the fact that Joel doesn't even know what it looks like is great, because I'm going to describe it in full, and this is how the trailer looks, and this is how it was presented. There is not a dark image in this trailer. It is all in sunlight, and it is all overblown. That is for a specific reason. It's not because the cinematography is awful. It actually makes it creepier with the subject matter being in this kind of like overblown sunlight with this really kind of horror aesthetic, because in Hereditary, there wasn't like hardly any daytime scenes. It was all nighttime. So now doing the reversal effect and really highlighting the horror front is pretty great. But what it's about is a young woman joins her boyfriend on a summer trip where things quickly go awry. And if this isn't in the same universe as Hereditary, then Ari Aster's playing us. Because when they get to this kind of like campground, it's almost like a cult. And they kind of, get around these group of people, and a lot of things go wrong. That's all I can tell you, because just like with the Hereditary trailer, they kind of keep things kind of close to the vest, which is great. I don't want anything to be spoiled, and this is the only trailer I'm going to watch of it. But it's presented with white bars, top and bottom of the screen. It's overblown, kind of lighting. It's not to a point where like it's super ugly and you can't tell what's going on. It's just enough to a point where it highlights the sun. But everything that's happening is super just like creepy. And so I think that's an interesting contrast, but I'm still excited to see it. A lot of mystery to be had, but just like with the Hereditary trailer, I had no idea about, spoiler alert, the cult stuff in that. They kind of kept that, kind of close to the vest. So, super excited about Midsummer. That's all I can kind of tell you. Joel, are you you kind of surprised with the visual look of it?
I mean, I heard that that's what it was like. I've heard comparisons to the Wicker Man, the original Wicker Man,
right?
Which was daytime horror, as people call it. And I know that it's hard to do. It's rarely done. But yeah, I mean, I don't even need to watch a trailer. I even posted this just on my page. Cult horror film from the director of Hereditary. Yes, please. I don't need to see anything from it to sell me. It was hard because I'm excited for it, and just like it was hard not to watch the late night trailer because I'm excited for it. But I'm doing all right with these, and the same thing though.
I am so glad you reminded me, because like I remember watching, I was like, "Ooh, cool, excited!" But that was also on Tuesday, and like I was by myself this week, so I had a lot on my mind, and yeah. So thank you for reminding me.
Yeah, whenever it's interesting. So of course he and I coordinate notes, and I finally wrote them like 4 hours ago for this week, and then we talked about them beforehand, and he said there's only one trailer, and I was thinking in my mind, oh, okay, so he's going to talk about the Midsummer trailer.
You had no idea I was talking about late night,
right? I mean, I knew that the trailer dropped. I just figured maybe it wasn't. You didn't consider it quite big enough to talk about,
right? But
I was just going to let you run that, and then you're saying it was late, and I was like, wait, what? Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is why we have co-hosts, to remind a very sickly other co-host, hey, dummy, there was another big trailer that dropped this week. Oh, yeah.
But Chase, you're supposed to be 100% on top of it, regardless of your condition.
No, Joel, no. That's not how sickness works.
Well, just like there weren't very many trailers, there wasn't very much that happened in terms of the news. And in fact, there were no big news stories. I mean, you had some small stuff like Disney Plus, is going to have all of Disney's movies ever, apparently, among its library. But that's not enough to talk about something like that. So it's pretty much just casting this week, guys. First up is the fact that Will Smith. There's been some Will Smith news this week. One, he's going to be playing, very interestingly, Richard Williams in a movie called King Richard, from a screenplay by Zach Baylin. Okay, so who is Richard Williams, you ask? Richard Williams fathered Venus and Serena Williams. And, of course, those are the famous tennis players and Wimbledon champions, and this apparently has been a screenplay on the blacklist for a while, is one of the best on there, so they're finally taking it on, and they've cast Will Smith as their father. So it's going to be interesting to see what this movie's about. I assume it's just about him training them. I'm not entirely sure, but that's one thing. So the other thing is that he's been replaced in a movie. Of course, we've got another Suicide Squad movie coming out from director James Gunn, And Will Smith has not agreed to come back as Deadshot in that sequel. So instead, they have replaced him potentially with Idris Elba, who is an excellent choice, because I always felt like Will Smith was kind of wasted in a role that it looked like he didn't really know what to do with. Of course, I'm obviously a non-fan of Suicide Squad. It'll be interesting to see how he takes that role over. Really good actor. He'll be fine either way. But yeah. So Idris Elba in for Will Smith. Certainly a callback to that one part in The Office where Dwight is talking to Michael about Charles Minor, played by Idris Elba, and said that he was Will Smith-esque. That's definitely what happened. I'm assuming that Warner Brothers watched that episode. Okay. And the last bit of casting news, like I said, there's not much going on this week. Jon Stewart has a directorial effort in the works. Of course, he had one back in 2014 with Rosewater, fine film. Not great, pretty good though. The one about the journalist who was tortured in part because of his interview on The Daily Show. That one had Gael Garcia Bernal, and it was definitely a drama. And now Stewart is positioning a comedy, and it's going to be a political comedy set in Wisconsin. Steve Carell is going to play a Democratic strategist helping a retired veteran run for mayor, and Rose Byrne is going to play the cutthroat Republican counterpart who campaigns on behalf of the local mayor, who's the incumbent. So, yeah, I can't wait for this. This sounds like a pretty strong thing, and especially a pretty strong, project for Stewart to take on, and I can't wait to see what he does with it. It's interesting because Jon Stewart wrote this screenplay, and I think that he's one of the sharper political minds among the comedy world. He's no nonsense in terms of how he thinks. He's very much, kind of whittle everything down to its basics, and I think it really works well for political comedy. So I can't wait for him to write one. That's going to be a lot of fun to watch. So, Chase, that's it. There's no other news.
Yeah,
what do you think about all of this?
Like, what's weird is, like, last week we were saying, like, oh, Captain Marvel's coming out. They're going to drop so many stories and trailers to play in front of it. It's like they didn't really do anything. Like, even with the trailers they dropped in front of Captain Marvel and my screen, it opened up with a documentary that was, like, super small, and I was like, what is happening right now? That's good, though, support smaller films. Yeah, as far as the casting goes, the Will Smith thing, thank God he's got something to bounce back on rather than playing the steroid Smurf, because if that was the last thing he was going to play besides, his recurring role in Bad Boys, that he'd be in hot water. But, of course, I'm just joking. He's got that film with Ang Lee and stuff, so he's going to do just fine. But that sounds like a pretty great little match, pun intended, for that movie. So, yeah, cool with that one. Idris Elba replacing Will Smith. What a great choice. I cannot believe that most of these cast members do not want to come back under the direction of James Gunn. I would. Are you kidding me? Like, I'd be like, oh, wait, you're trading out David Ayer for James Gunn? Dude, sign me up. Please, like, extend my contract. But Idris Elba was like, I'm going to jump on that. I'm sure they offered it to him. I'm sure his agent was just like, hey, you want to be Deadshot in Suicide Squad 2? Yeah. So, I mean, this is the guy that was also in Squarespace commercials for like 2 months. So I think he can do literally anything. I love Idris Elba. And I think him as a leader of this kind of like rat pack of criminals, I think it's perfect because Idris Elba kind of has that strong leadership build to him, and I think if he plays Deadshot, it'll be perfect. And I also no dig on Will Smith. The guy's super tall. It's kind of really hard for him to build muscle. Yes, he has been toned in the past, but like he's not like beefy. I don't want Deadshot to be like this roided out person. but I wanted him to be intimidating a little bit. You know, Will Smith playing cosplay is not intimidating. Idris Elba, on the other hand, I think is an argument to be had to where you put him in that suit with the scope on his eye, I would be scared and I would crap my pants if I saw him trying to snipe me. So, yeah, that's a great pick. And as far as the Jon Stewart thing with that film, I think Joel is even more excited because this gives him more credit to his Vice pick for second favorite film of the year, because I'll guarantee you Jon Stewart saw the way he played Donald Rumsfeld in that movie and was just like, yeah, I want him in my political movie now. So, yeah, I think that's obviously a sound choice to cast someone that just played an iconic political figure in a movie that was very abrasive last year and very well done. So, yeah, him and Rose Byrne, that is an interesting pairing. You know, it's kind of like when I saw Neighbors for the first time, I was just like, Seth Rogen and Rose Byrne, that's not going to work. They got some chemistry. I could see them as a married couple, and that's why I like Rose Byrne. She can kind of just fit into any environment, whether it be, you know, the dramas or comic book movies or comedies. Like, she can do it all, and I love her for that. So, you know, her and Steve Carell, yeah, sign me up. So, my favorite bit of news, believe it or not, is the Deadshot thing. I saw Suicide Squad twice within, I want to say, a few days. By the second viewing, I got so tired of it. I was like, I don't want to watch this ever again. And so the prospects of a sequel, I had always put that mindset out the car window, and I'm still driving forward. I'm just like, I don't even want to think about that. But once you bring on James Gunn and have him write and direct, you're like, okay, I'm back on board. And now when you want to add Idris, and, you know, Joel Kinnaman's going to be replaced, I'm sure everyone else is going to be replaced. So I'm even more stoked for it now that it's going to be basically a fresh start. So yeah, that's probably my favorite bit of news. But yeah,
as long as they don't have anybody coming in to play a car dealership mascot as the villain,
car dealership mascot,
whatever they're called, the balloon thingies,
the waving, wacky, inflatable, arm flailing tube man. Come on, Joel. Did you not see the Family Guy episode? Come on.
I've forgotten about that. There we go. Yeah, that's yeah, absolutely. Anything would be an improvement over Suicide Squad.
Right.
Yeah. Can't wait. That's probably my favorite.
It's surprising. That's why it's my favorite, because it's like, I expect like Jon Stewart to cast correctly in his film. I would never expect in a million years that Idris Elba would be like, yeah, I want to do the sequel to Suicide Squad. I'd be like, what? Like, so, like, that just, I think it's just the curveball aspect where I was just like, I didn't see it coming, and that's why I like it so much, and also makes me more excited for the movie.
There we go. All right, speaking of movie that we were excited for, I don't know where that came from. All right, guys, we're already there. Time for our review of Captain Marvel. Now, this is the 21st film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it stars Brie Larson as a character that we are introduced known as Veers. This is a Kree Star Force sort of lieutenant, captain, something, warrior who crash lands on Earth, and it turns out that she has a past. She attracts the attention of Nick Fury, who still has both eyes and is, of course, played by Samuel L. Jackson, and the agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So, I don't know, honestly, what to say about the plot of this movie. There's a lot of stuff that I feel like I can't really talk about here, but essentially, the villain of the piece is, or at least appears to be, a Kree named, oh my gosh, I just saw this movie. What was, Talos, played by Ben Mendelsohn in a great performance. You
mean the Skrulls?
And the Skrulls.
Yeah,
yes.
you said the Kree.
There we go. I'm sorry, Scrolls, guys.
Joel, do you not read your
I'm
comic
loopy
books?
right now. I don't know what happened. What?
I was saying, do you not read
What
your
did you
comic
say?
books, Joel?
I don't. Okay, I'm gonna let Chase take it because I don't know what he thought of it.
I know.
So Chase, go ahead.
So this
What's
is
your
what's
review
really
of-
great about these movies, and I'm going to do the same thing for Endgame. I'm going to do the same thing for Spider-Man, to where Joel and I don't hide each other's reactions anymore. And I knew for this one, since it was kind of being divisive all over the internet, I kind of want to just put up on Letterboxd that I saw the movie, and it with no grade. That way, Joel will be like, "Oh no, like what did he think of it?" type of deal. So, okay. So I was excited for it, and rightfully so. I have given Disney my life and a lot of my money in my bank account. I have all the movies. I've seen all of them in theaters. I love this universe. I don't care how cheesy or corny it can get sometimes. It is my Star Wars. I live for this stuff. And, you know, it's the one time during the year where I get to geek out more than Joel, even though Joel's he's you know, he's in the same team now with the past like 5 or 6 films. He's starting to come over to my side a little bit, but you know, and then I let Joel do his freak out moments when we talk about Star Wars. But this is my franchise. I love talking about this. It's without a doubt my favorite blockbuster franchise. And I know a lot of people, if this is your first time listening and you've never listened to the show before, you'll be like, oh my God, this guy all he does is just like blockbusters. He has no film range. It's like, no, Joel and I see a very even amount of independent films throughout the year as well. But if I were to pick my favorite like group of blockbusters, it's this universe. That's it. Okay. So, you know, going into it, we got Brie Larson, Academy Award winner, from, you know, one of my favorite films of that year that Room came out. And of course, we have Ben Mendelsohn. I was first introduced to him in the explosive show known as Bloodline. Love that show. It's directed, you know, by Anna Fleck and Ryan Bowden. Or is it?
Yes.
Or did I just like dyslexic that?
Or I think it's Anna Bowden and Ryan Fleck,
okay, so
they're married, so it doesn't really matter.
Right, and so as you can tell, I am loopy, strictly from the sickness and not from medicine because I have not taken any medicine yet. So I'm probably going to die as I'm doing the review. So yeah, you know, they directed Mississippi Grind, and that had been Mendelsohn, so they have that relationship. And then, of course, Sam Jackson coming back with the de-aging, and then Clark Gregg, same thing. So it's a recipe for success, right? And so it's the stepping stone to go into Endgame. I got to be honest with you, because I hate it when people that are blind to franchises that they love just say they love everything and just no. It's not what Joel and I are here to do. We're going to be critical on stuff. And Joel's the same way, even when it comes to his movies. Okay, so I'm seeing it again tomorrow night. If my mind changes, I will let Joel know through a private text conversation, because by that time the episode will have gone up. I thought the movie was just okay. And to be quite frank with you, when you're dealing with the last couple of years with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Spider-Man Homecoming, Thor Ragnarok, Black Panther, Avengers Infinity War, even Ant-Man and the Wasp, this is a step down from all 6 of those. And I don't know what it was, but there was a disconnect between me and the movie as a whole. Is it a bad movie? No. Is it a great movie? No. I seriously think it's just middle of the road. So let me try to explain this as best as I can without spoiling anything. At the top, I will say my favorite part of the movie was that wonderful end credit scene, the first one, because it kind of bleeds into Avengers Endgame. And I was like, yeah, I'm ready. But the movie itself. So you know how, excuse me, you know how like with Taika Waititi and Ryan Coogler and James Gunn and all of them, they have a distinct style that they brought to their movies, where if I watch that movie, I can be like, cool, I appreciate the effort to make this movie look different from the rest of the movies, but still have that through storyline kind of striking throughout the narrative. I like that. With this one, I felt there was no atmosphere to this movie. There was no visual style that really kind of stuck out to me to where I was like, yeah, this is Captain Marvel. It was just more of like, cool, she's in space at this moment. She's on a spaceship. She's on Earth. And I'm just like, okay, some of these set pieces are a little cool and fun to watch with some of the action choreography, but there was no personality to it. And that kind of struck me the most, because that will also bleed into Brie Larson when I get to her in just a second. But I thought the personality was a bit bland. And not saying it's awful, but I felt like they could have done a little bit more with it. I don't know if it was because of the shifting character, in the narrative, shifting from, past scene to past scene to past scene, with her trying to figure out who she is and stuff. I don't know if it was the kind of abrupt editing of that, and that's why there wasn't really anything to establish a personality with. But I felt that was kind of bland. Like cinematography wise, there was a couple things that were cool, I guess, during like the action choreography, or some of the power shots, if you will, of her in her suit, or her doing a maneuver. Like some of the stuff like was visually stimulating, where I was like, oh, that's really cool. But as a whole, I thought this movie was more of like flashes in the pan type of excellence, more of like than an overall cook on it. It was just more of like, hey, this was great. All right, let's kind of reel back for like 20 minutes. All right, something great happened again. Let's kind of go back a little bit. So that's kind of the whole issue I have with Fleck and Bowden, is that they didn't really have like their voice kind of permeating throughout the movie, and I thought that was a little disheartening, because I had really never seen their movies, and I kind of wish this maybe wanted to watch their past movies. I still will, but it's kind of like, I really don't want to now. As far as the actual narrative goes, it was fine, I guess. I mean, as soon as the movie started, I knew that the villain that they were trying to set up for the movie was not the actual villain. I was like, okay, this is going to be the villain. That's going to be the villain. We're going to do like this switch that I've seen a lot of different times. And by the end of the movie, it happened. And I was like, okay, that didn't really go anywhere. It didn't really have any substance to the overall plot, I thought. I mean, the underlying themes of like, without spoiling, I will say, of like immigration was interesting, but it wasn't like explored enough to a point where I was like, wow, that was like really good. It was just like, that's a cool concept to kind of like interweave within your story, but it was nothing more than that. And so I thought, everything was just kind of like, it was just there. It kind of lays out in a fine manner, but it's not anything that's just like, wow, that was really great. But I will say that like the last 15 minutes was pretty cool, when we actually get to see her at her full strength and her full presence, with her energy that she can kind of shoot out of her body, because she is the most powerful person in this universe. And so, without, once again, kind of tiptoeing around spoilers, when you find out what her power is, like, and where she got it, she's basically like Black Panther's suit, but in human form, and like 100 times more effective. Where it's just she harnesses a lot of energy within her, and then she can pretty much blast you and destroy you within a blast of the heat coming out of her hands. But so like the last 15 minutes, I was like intrigued. I was in it. I was like, cool. This is what I wanted to see. And then the movie ends, and you're like, well, I'm excited for Endgame, and hopefully she can do a little bit better. Okay. I don't think I've said this about an actor in this universe for quite some time, but I'm not feeling Brie Larson as Captain Marvel. I know a lot of people, actually, that I work with that are fans of this franchise, and they watch the trailers, and they're like, I'm not feeling Brie Larson, but I keep telling them, like, oh, she's an Oscar winner. Like, she's done all these great films, Short Term, 12, Room, Scott Pilgrim versus the World, like 21 Jump Street. She's a great range actress. And then when I talked to them this morning, they liked Brie in the movie. I did not. And I don't know if it was because of her acting choices or the directing or the directors directing her to act like that. Now, I will say this. I will give her 2 more chances in terms of showing me what her character is all about under the guidance of a different director. Like when you look at Thor, for instance, he had Kenneth Branagh for the first one. Pretty great little performance. You know, like, hey, that's a good Thor performance. When we got to Ragnarok, Waititi showed a little bit more personality within Thor. Okay, we added some more depth to him. When the Russo brothers got a hold of him and really showed some more depth in Infinity War, there was a lot of pathos in there. And I was like, wow, under the guidance of different directors, this is a well-rounded character. If we're talking about Captain Marvel's first movie out, I don't think she did a good job. She seemed very wooden to me, really just kind of like not all there, which I get to some extent because of her character. She's trying to remember her past, but even when her past like starts to come together towards the end, like she starts remembering stuff, you figure that'd be a very powerful emotional moment for a character. Like I would break down in tears if I found out that my memories were all starting to come together and I realized that my past life was here. She started to do that, but it didn't go anywhere past from eyes watering. And I was like, I'm not feeling it. I really wasn't. And you know, the action choreography that she was put through and her suit on stuff, she can deliver that well. I have no problem with that. It's more about the character itself and how it was presented, fleshed out, and her performance that made me go, okay, I wasn't buying it, but I will give her another chance in Endgame and even possibly her sequel or wherever else she pops up, because she will be under the guidance of a different director. And the Russo brothers, if they were able to bring out that performance in Chris Hemsworth in Infinity War, which was by far one of my favorite scenes with when he's talking to Rocket on the ship, then I'm excited to see like what the prospects of like what they can do to bring it out in her. So I wasn't feeling her. Sam Jackson is Sam Jackson. Great Nick Fury. I've always liked him, no matter how little or how large his screen time is. Clark Gregg, he's barely even in there as Coulson, but it is what it is. But I will say one of the huge pluses on this, and it's scary to think about because Disney's going to rule the world, and Joel and I are going to be working for the mouse here pretty soon. But I will say that they're the leaders when it comes to de-aging effects. Holy crap. I remember when I saw Ant-Man for the first time, and Michael Douglas comes on screen because he's the first scene in the movie. I was like, wow, that's some really good... I thought it was makeup at first, but I think my mind kind of triggered itself to thinking, oh, no, this is CGI. And so from that point on, they've been really great with their de-aging stuff. And it kind of just blows my mind on how good they are. And I thought the effects on Sam Jackson, Clark Gregg were phenomenal. I love the de-aging stuff that they were able to portray. As far as other effects goes, since we're kind of bleeding into that, once again, gotta be honest, some of the CGI, great. Some of the green screen work, I could not believe this came out of a big budgeted movie. It's kind of the same issues I had with Black Panther, where Black Panther had some interesting CGI, but their green screen work was kind of bad. And so I'm like, how do these movies get approval like that? I know everyone's already seen the clip online, but there is one shot where she's falling back towards the earth, and she closes her eyes, open them up, and that green screen work is terrible, and people are like, oh, it's just all terrible. That's one shot, folks. It's bad, but it doesn't classify the whole movie. But there are, like, sprinklings of questionable green screen work, especially when her and Annette Bening are talking in that very, like, Annihilation-looking room, and it just did not look good. So some of the effects didn't really work. Some of them really worked. Case in point, when she is actually in combat, oh man, like it gets me excited for the possibilities of Endgame. like when she's fighting the ships in space, and kind of blasting through them. It's so great. And that's not really a spoiler. It's in the trailers and stuff, but really great stuff. Kind of that visceral feeling you get in your gut knowing that like she's going to cause some damage in the next movie. And I forgot to mention Annette Bening and Jude Law and stuff. To start with Annette Bening, she didn't have to be in it. I wasn't really feeling the performance. She's in it a couple times, and I don't know. And then Jude Law, like, he's Jude Law, but when it boils down to it, like, his character's kind of underwhelming and really just kind of underdeveloped, and it kind of rushes to some conclusions at the end where I'm just like, okay, I knew this was going to happen, and they're trying to make it a big deal about it. Like, the movie is just like, oh, this is a big deal, and it's like, I'm not really feeling it. Ben Mendelsohn, I know a lot of people are saying he steals the show. I mean, he's I guess okay as a Skrull. I don't know. I was expecting the Skrulls to be a little bit more less stand-up comedian-y. I don't know what I was expecting, but what was actually presented, was a tad off-putting. Maybe I'll see it in a different light tomorrow when I re-see the movie, but just kind of like whatever. I mean, you know, for a 2-hour-long movie, it goes by at a steady pace. It's not boring or anything because I'm invested into this universe, but at the end of it, I felt like there was really nothing kind of portrayed to me as something I needed to be fully invested in. It was just kind of like a paint by numbers, like, all right, we got to get through this just to get to Endgame type of deal. And I know a lot of people like are saying that they're kind of like on my side where like they're just like down the middle with it. I'm curious to know what Joel thinks. I don't know if he's going to like roast me or if he's going to be on the same page or if he's going to think worse of it, but I was just kind of lukewarm to the whole experience. I'm excited to see her in future movies. And there was some, like I said, flashes in the pan, moments of excitement. But overall, if you're talking about character development, which I thought was just kind of choppy a little bit with the whole like past remembering and stuff, and then character development with like Annette Bening and Ben Mendelsohn, all that stuff, it was just kind of blah. But I am excited to see her in Endgame just because we did get that little flavor with the end credit scene, which I'm hoping. I know Joel doesn't like end credit scenes, but I'm hoping he agrees that like once he saw that, he was just like, "Give me Endgame now." But yeah, I'll give her another chance. But I think for a first time out, not really one of my favorites. And unfortunately, because Joel's going to smack his head here in a little bit, I'm a completist, so I'm going to buy it anyways because I got to complete the collection. I still even own like Thor: The Dark World and like, you know, some of the other ones are kind of subpar just because I want to complete my collection. But unfortunately, this is one I don't really want to watch again. But I'll still recommend it. Just if you are a fan of this universe, and if you're a fan of Brie Larson, yeah, give it a shot. But for me, I'll give it a C+. Just because I think some of the de-aging is really kind of gnarly, and then some of the moments of greatness towards the end got me excited, and some of the concepts were great, just wasn't really fully realized in the end for me. So C+ for Captain Marvel. I think out of the last 6 of them that we've seen since 2017, kind of a bit of a disappointment.
Huh. Okay, so listeners, I want you to get out a calendar. Or if you don't have a calendar, pause this. Go buy a calendar.
I know where he's going with this. I know where he's going with this.
Guys, this might be the first time I'm a lot more like I'm just losing words tonight, guys. It wasn't a very long week, but I'm just tired. Sorry. So I'm losing words. Bear with me here. Okay. This is the first time in a while that I can think of that I have been much, much more enthusiastic about a Marvel movie than Chase.
And I will say before you get to review, that is fair, and I totally understand that because out of everything I've seen, if you want to take the whole, troll aspect out of it and people just downvoting for no apparent reason, I have seen this movie as like just vastly mixed, where a lot of people were down the middle of the road. A lot of people, like Mark and herself, they like it. I've heard some people love it. I've heard some people hate it. Like, this movie's kind of all over the place, but I think that's great because I want to hear different sides to it. So, Joel, please teach me a lesson, sir.
Okay, it'll be interesting. You know what I think? I think, and this is not just like some blanket statement about Chase, but I have a feeling that he's going to wonder what movie he watched when he sees it again tomorrow night.
Right, and
I also have to wonder if
that might be the case.
Yeah, I have to wonder if being sick was part of this, because
maybe
I had a diametrically opposite reaction to just about everything that you just said. Almost. I do agree with some of the green screen work is bad, although I don't agree that it has anything to do with the Annette Bening scenes, because they're taking place in what is essentially a computer program, kind of, or a really advanced version of that. So it looks unreal, and I'm fine with that. And so I don't understand your comments there, but some of the green screen work elsewhere, yeah, sure, okay, fine. The visual effects otherwise, though, are hands down infinitely better in any given moment than they were in Black Panther. The dog fights and the stuff in space when she's blasting apart spaceships, or just spaceships are chasing each other near the beginning, is stunning. I think it's some of their best work for Marvel. I don't know if you saw this in 3D or not, but usually 3D darkens images. Okay, so I don't know, but I saw it in 2D. I thought that it was stunning. I do agree that Jude Law is Jude Law. He's here to be here for the kind of the big twist in involving some of the narrative here. But Annette Bening, I thought, was really good at being Annette Bening, which is just about enough for me. She's one of my favorite actresses. I think that to kind of reflect somebody on Twitter who said this, I think that if you're going to cast anybody as a physical interpretation of a character called the Supreme Intelligence, it's Annette Bening. It's a really good choice.
Well, and I agree with you. Like, she's a fantastic actress. I remember when you and I watched that
her
movie last year, or not? Was last year, like 2 years ago, that Film Stars Die in Liverpool? It was fantastic. Yeah, that was great.
Well, yeah, I mean, basically, her entire job here is to deliver exposition. Right. I think that, and that's a screenplay issue, sure, whatever. But I think that I don't know if it has to be a good performance. I think it needs to function. And I think that she functions fine. She delivers it. You want an actress like that to deliver dialogue like that. And I think that she does it pretty well, because she is able to bring credence to it in a way that maybe a lesser actress wouldn't. You're talking about a multiply nominated person. Yeah, so I thought that she was good. Little part of the movie, though. Absolute standout. And you're completely wrong about this, and you'll find it out if you study the nuances of his performance under layers of makeup. Absolute standout has been Mendelsohn, who is actively excellent here, and I have no idea what you're talking about. He's fine. He is terrific, and in ways that I can't really talk about, unfortunately. But I'm going to say kind of what our friend Mark said.
His whole role is basically a spoiler.
Yeah, pretty much. But I'm going to say what Mark said. It's a surprisingly grounded performance for being under makeup, and so much makeup. There's nuances to this role that I think are going to be lost on anybody who's just trying to basically see if he. I don't know. I honestly don't know how you. I don't know. I don't know how you could watch this performance and not think it's terrific. And that's again why I wonder if you're going to have a completely opposing reaction to this movie tomorrow. It's very interesting. So I thought he was excellent. I completely disagree with you again about Brie Larson, who I thought was excellent. There is a moment, kind of early on. So she has gone into the realm, I guess, whatever it is, of the Supreme Intelligence, right? And and basically she stands on this little platform, and curly cues curl up her and connect to her brain, and she goes into this realm and she talks to Annette Bening, and then she comes back, right? And she's kind of been given this mission, and it's right before she goes to the mission. It's literally these moments between her about to exit the Supreme Intelligence and then the cut to the slow motion walk where she's being disconnected from the device and she's about to go on this mission and she smirks. And the smirk, I was trying to figure it out for like the next 5 minutes. I was like, okay, what's that smirk? And I finally figured it out. It's mischief. It's a mischievous performance. And I think that the key to her performance in a big way is that she is playing this role as somebody pretty constantly kind of surprised at her own power, ultimately kind of empowered by literally by her powers, and kind of taking this all in at once. And I thought that that's where her performance worked really well. The whole emoting thing is an interesting argument, I guess. My counter argument would be that this is a character who, for a period of time now, has been told not to emote. So, literally, to emote in the way that you're talking about, Chase, would literally be not this character. Because what the movie's trying to do is, over a period of time, tell us that she has to let that go, but we're catching up with the character in the throes of this extended period of training. So for her to emote too much or even really much at all, would be too much. For her to do that, I think goes against the character as the screenplay has written her. Because the whole thing, it's I'm just going to quote Mark again. Mark is a genius, guys. Go read his reviews. This is a movie not about conflict, but about discovery. And she's discovering all of these different things. We're kind of retroactively discovering the beginning portions of some of this story through the character of Nick Fury. And so it's all about discovery. It's not particularly about this conflict, although it obviously factors in a lot. It's about her reactions to it and what she discovers about herself. She discovers about the kind of the wider universe, and what she discovers about some other people. And for me, yeah, that's why Larson's performance works so well. So at the end of the day, I think it's a character study, possibly, except for maybe Black Panther, more so than many of the other films in this franchise, which have a lot, often been about characters and not conflicts. You think about Black Panther being tied specifically to his African descent and his heritage and all of that. That's a character study. I think that this is a character study because it's about her discovering her past and how her past is connected to her present and how they might shape her future and how those things might shape the future of the entire world. I think that this was an all-important kind of flashback almost for the MCU, because of course it's set in 1995 and all of that. So yeah, I really like this movie, and I think that, all the plot points, yeah, they're familiar, fine. I predicted exactly what was going to happen too, but it can't always just be about that. For me, there's got to be a little bit more, and this movie provided that more for me. And so, yeah, I just think that it works. I think it works as a piece of entertainment. I think you're right about the cinematography, kind of TV-ish. It's Ben Davis who shot Doctor Strange and a couple of the others, I think. But not particularly exploratory work, um, in any particular way. But I don't know if these movies are really about cinematography. There's been some solid work across the board from a lot of these movies, but I don't know if, again, this franchise is really about that. For me, it's the visual effects. The sound design is wonderful. The score is great. I really liked. It's a composer I've never heard of before who did this, and again, sound work I think is excellent. It's some of the most playful that they've had, and and then you just got the actors kind of moving the plot along, providing some comic relief, and I thought that the comic relief here worked. There was a lot of stuff that really made me laugh, particularly ironically enough, surrounding Ben Mendelsohn's character, who gets increasingly more annoyed as he goes along on his journey. And I thought that was really funny.
I will agree with you. The comedy wasn't like overbearing or anything. I thought the comedy was like that right amount of spice that you need for this type of, like you said, playful kind of decade that they're in. So I didn't have any problem with like the humor or the music choices or anything. So, I mean, I guess if that counts as like atmospheric a little bit with the time period, then I'll agree with you on that. But yeah, so.
Anyway, I'll be interested to find out what you think tomorrow night, whether or not, because I've had experiences like that before where I just wasn't of the right frame of mind the first time.
Right.
And I see it even just a couple days later and I have a complete turnaround. I've had that happen. And so I would be surprised because everything you said, just about, I was surprised to hear come out of your mouth. If only because I had such a completely like opposing kind of experience with it.
Right, because it's shocking because for the past 7 movies, you and I have been pretty much on par with them. We're like we pretty much agreed on everything.
Yeah, I mean, Ant-Man and the Wasp was kind of a soft lob. That's the worst quote unquote film for me at least, of Phase 3, which started with Civil War. But I've pretty thoroughly enjoyed everything else, particularly stuff like Thor Ragnarok might be my favorite. Infinity War is obviously kind of its own thing, but it's great. This isn't on those movies level, and probably not on Homecoming's level either. But I'd put it safely on par with Guardians 2 and Doctor Strange. I think it's a really good movie. I'd give it a B+.
Okay, like I said, that's totally fair. I mean, I've heard a lot of people like you and Mark and like that camp that really enjoyed it and really liked it, and kind of a nice little addition. I just thought it was kind of like down the middle, but like you said, maybe I'll change my mind. What did you think of the end game scene?
Okay, so I guess this is spoiler territory.
Well, because I know you don't like those scenes.
Kind of. Well, not normally, but it's kind of changed when it comes to this final bit. I didn't see. I think that I heard that there was a post-credit scene. I didn't stay for that.
It's not
so
something.
I just
it was more like. Do you remember the Thor: The Dark World like comedic dog scene? That was pretty much what it is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
In any case, now that they've been kind of dealing with these final acts of the franchise, I think I've liked them a little bit more. The problem before was that they were trying to impart story. I don't have a problem with that because now there's an active like acknowledgement of a wider universe through, particularly with Infinity War, all the characters coming together, and of course Endgame's going to have that element there too. We don't know what to what degree, but certainly I thought that mid-credit scene was a fun little tease. What I wanted is for them to update us on the fates of some of the other characters,
right,
that we don't know about, and they don't do that here.
They're not going to do that. They're not going to do that.
Well, they should have, because they haven't told us what's happened to Pepper. They haven't told us what's happened to Aunt May. If they want it, basically, and I feel like it would be really awkward of them to open up the next movie with another big, disappearance event. And so they clearly aren't going to begin the next movie with the fates of those characters. And I just think that they kind of left us hanging. They told us about the characters that are the heroes, but they didn't tell us about any of the people that they love. So, for instance, when we get in the Endgame trailer, Tony's message to Pepper, we don't even know if Pepper exists right now. And I would like to know that before anything opens. And so
no
here's
way.
how...
No way.
No way? What do you mean?
I love the fact that they're keeping that a giant tease in terms of like, out of the ones we didn't see, like who's dusted and who hasn't.
But do you disagree that they haven't shown us enough of the people though? But what I'm saying is okay. The people that we've seen disappear are, except for the few extras in the background of the Nick Fury scene, and some of the like the Wakandan and whatever the other tribe is, they're warriors. Okay, we've only seen among the Avengers who's disappeared. So we're seeing in that Endgame trailer a moment for Tony where he's sending Pepper a message. And now that Captain Marvel is over and we don't know the fate of Pepper, are we supposed to guess that she's still around? And if that's the case, then are we supposed to guess that Aunt May's still around? Are we supposed to guess that Happy is still around? What's going on with some of these other characters that we have grown to love? And it's not even that the characters love them. It's that they're existing characters that were left out of an extinction event. And now we're heading into another movie that's clearly not going to start with another extinction event because it's all about trying to stop him. And if they have 3 hours, then okay. I mean, the 3 hours to impart all of the story to us, then they're going to want to get, kind of hurry to the part where it becomes a big battle. And so they're not going to want to waste their time with showing us who else has disappeared. And I would kind of like for them to show us what they owe us, because what they owe us is a complete picture of how this has affected everyone. So, for instance, Tony is, right now stranded on a faraway planet. He's seen some number, except for one of the other people that he was with, disappear. And he's sending a message off to somebody that he has every hope is still there. And that's all well and good. But we're entering the movie not knowing whether or not it was a message that even reached anywhere. Like, I just don't get, like, from a marketing perspective, why they wouldn't give us just a little bit more. Because they gave us that with Ant-Man. We saw who disappeared among Ant-Man's friends, and those were characters that were, at least two of them were kind of side characters. And so I just don't understand how they're just kind of, it's hard to describe it, but it's almost a what they owe us kind of thing. And I think that they do owe us a complete picture of how this disappearance event kind of affected everyone. And so, yeah, that's what I wanted here. It's, this is, again, these are spoilers, but there's really just a reason given for the beeper that we see at the very end of Infinity War. And an owner kind of comes back to claim it. So that's pretty much it. I think that we needed a little bit more. It was a little underwhelming to me. The moments played well. That's fine. And we see the initial stages of some of the characters dealing with this trauma kind of. But I wanted a little bit more. I wanted kind of her to react to the event in real time. I wanted her to see, obviously if she was just a few minutes early, probably she would have noticed some of the people surrounding her disappear because it was all over the universe. So, I just don't understand why they shortchanged that, because we're going to be entering, not having seen all of these other things happening. That's part of, I guess that's part of like closure almost. I want to be able to. I know that it sounds horrible, but I want to be able to see the fates of these characters, not be, kind of dangling off a cliff of uncertainty, and then we find out that they're gone. That's a bit of a cheat to me, because part of the whole closure thing, at least in terms of the people whose fates are in question, I just want to see that. And so I felt like that Kevin Feige and company kind of shortchanged that. But
well, Joel, it's also,
in any case,
very, very possible, because you don't watch the trailers, when in-game, and I'm just making this prediction right now, folks, they're going to drop the second trailer to in-game this coming week, and they're going to see tickets on sale. It is very possible, within the first 10, 20 seconds of that trailer, maybe they do go over, out of all the ones that are within the Avengers circle that we didn't see, who is alive and who isn't. That is very possible. I still think they're going to keep it close to the vest. I mean, I look at it as, Tony sending that message off, Cap doing the things on Earth, they know what happened, but they still don't know the full details. They're kind of just going with the flow type of deal. So, keeping us in the dark and having the characters in the dark, as they slowly find out, I think is a part of the journey that, they want us as an audience to kind of go on with them, try to find out, the, I don't know how to explain it, but it's just when Tony's sending off that message, we don't know what happened to Pepper. He doesn't know what happened to Pepper. And I think that makes it, a little bit more kind of emotionally impactful for him to send that message, not knowing what happened to her, but he's just hoping by a slim chance that she is out there somewhere. And I don't know, I find that to be more poetic, I guess. I don't know. I know we disagree on this, but I kind of hope they just keep it in the dark and we don't find out until the actual movie.
That is poetic. That is poetic. But it would be, I think it would receive more, almost, okay, how about this? Okay. I'd liken it to, in a strange way, and I wish that broadcast shows had this much kind of, these many balls to do this, but I almost liken it in a certain way to 24, the show 24. I don't know if you've ever watched 24. I don't think you have.
I watched a couple episodes.
Okay. So that show, to me at least, I don't think has ever been matched in terms of I haven't watched Game of Thrones, so, a lot, and I know that there's a lot of really shocking deaths, but 24 was almost defined by shocking deaths. And the act of showing them to us, sometimes when other characters weren't aware of their deaths, is an act of dramatic irony. And I think that sometimes dramatic irony is important to drama. So even if Tony is sending it out there and he doesn't know whether Pepper's gone, us knowing whether Pepper's gone or not would add some degree of it would add some degree of, I think, another layer of poeticism to it. I don't know if I'm explaining it very well, but
no.
Basically,
I totally get where you're coming from. I guess you and I are on the different. We're on the same coin, but we're just kind of slightly on different sides. Where we're just we like what is set up, but you want a little bit more information. I'm okay with keeping it in the dark. So I'll tell you what. If they put it in the second trailer, do you want me to tell you?
I'll probably watch the second trailer just to get it over with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be dumb of them to do that because we want to maintain some level of secrecy, and I don't know if they want to tell us who's gone, but that's kind of become part of the problem now. they had this great moment, at the end of Infinity War, doubly so with the post-credit scene. And I don't want them to squander it, and I feel like to some degree squandering it would include not letting us know about some of these fates that they didn't initially tell us, because these are not the only important characters in this franchise. And I think that to spare us pretty much of anybody, like for instance, we already have seen him in the trailer, and we've seen him in this state of clear dismay is Hawkeye. So, I mean, it sounds bad, but if they're going the Ronin, route, obviously he's lost his whole family. And if they're going with the comics, I'm pretty sure that he's lost his whole family in front of him. So I think that's what happens in the comics. Is he actually is in the room with all of them at the same time, and they all disappear. So I'm pretty sure that's how he becomes Ronin. And I think that it would be fair, sort of more fair to the emotions of the audience to show that, because that would insert us directly into his despair,
Yeah.
So
okay, so the way you described it like that, I totally get where you're coming from now.
Yeah, so like us seeing, basically, if they want us to be in the same headspace as these characters, as Tony, almost, except with that element of dramatic irony. Maybe you're right. Maybe they don't need to show Pepper. I don't know. But I feel like there's some degree of responsibility they have to the audience. And I think that the audience wants to have some closure, whether or not the characters do. And I think that that's where you got to kind of put the audience above the storytelling. There's times where you got to do that. And I think here, showing us Pepper and Aunt May and all of that, I feel like Aunt May's not gone personally because Peter is. That's what I feel. But, maybe have her, we see her find out, or something like that, where they involve all of these other characters in this big thing, because all they've done so far is pretty much directly within the actual Avengers circle. We haven't really gotten any sort of idea of how everybody else is doing, and I think that that's unfair to some degree of the producers of these movies, of this franchise, Kevin Feige, whoever is making the decision, the screenwriters, I think, to begin the next movie. They should catch us up on that, I think. Maybe have a scene where, but again, we're not seeing it, and so I'm kind of rambling here, but I just don't want them to tell me that Pepper's gone. That's the problem. I don't want them to tell me that Hawkeye's family's gone. I want them to have shown me this stuff, and I think that they had the perfect opportunity.
From that standpoint, I agree with you on.
Yeah,
I'd rather see it.
Yeah, I think that they had. I think that they had a perfect opportunity with Captain Marvel to do that, because what they could have done two things. One, they could have had here's what I thought was going to happen in any reasonable universe. This is what I thought was going to happen. We arrive at the present day with whatever she's doing, right? We find out kind of what her mission is by the end of this movie, and I won't go into that because that's spoilers. But we kind of have fast forwarded 13 years. Is that 13 years? Yeah. Is it 13 years? 23 years. 23 years into the future. And that tells you where I am, that I thought 1995 was 13 years ago.
We are getting old.
Right. We are well past that. 23 years into the future, we have kind of gone forward. Clearly, I feel like she's probably where she was at the end of this movie. That's what I'm guessing. Unless the next Captain Marvel movie, for some reason, takes us to before this. I don't think that they would do that. But I think that she's probably where she plans to be by the end of this movie. I think that she's still doing that, probably living wherever that is. So I won't. I know that that's very vague. People can see the movie to know what I'm talking about. But she's probably where she is at the end of the movie. And what the mid credits could have done is fast forwarded to modern day, shown her kind of interacting casually. You know, certain person disappears. I think that you and I both know who would have been the most interesting one to disappear, by the way. And I'll just clear that up with you after the phone call. You know, show who disappears around her, and then her getting the page, and because we obviously know that that's going to happen, and then this maybe this mid-credit scene, but also then just kind of cut to the other people around the Avengers, all of their loved ones and stuff, and show us who disappears among them. It doesn't make sense to me if they're trying to only make us care about the Avengers. That's dumb if they've introduced all of these other characters and they're not going to show us who's disappeared. That's my problem. And so I think that it should have played out this other way rather than just connecting us to this beeper thing. And yeah, so a slight disappointment, but we gotta end this because I got a little bit of a thing to do. Now, I was telling you all last week that I'm starting this big, gigantic Academy Awards project, and in the last few minutes of the show here, I'm going to start that. So basically, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to be focusing for a while on the 2010s. I kind of decided that because there's a lot of stuff I need to rewatch in the previous decades, and I'm going to be using the time that I talk about the 2010s, the awards of the 2010s, to rewatch all of that stuff. So for a while, you're just going to be hearing about movies from this decade, and then at some point, and I'll tell you all when it is, I'll start getting to some of the previous decades. And that's when I'm going to be really excited because there's a lot that I have to catch up with. So for now, though, I'm going to be going into the Best Picture Awards for the early part of the 2010s. And yes, I'm going to be doing multiple years at once, so get ready for that. So this is Best Picture. Now, I'm going to begin with 2015, and I'm going to be delivering these as an Oscars presenter from, let's say, pre-2013 might. So let's go with this. All right, so the nominees for Best Picture in 2015 were The Big Short, Dede Gardner, Jeremy Kleiner, and Brad Pitt, producers. Bridge of Spies, Steven Spielberg, Mark Platt, and Christy McCosco Krieger, producers. Brooklyn, Finola Dwyer and Amanda Posey, producers. Mad Max Fury Road, Doug Mitchell and George Miller, producers. The Martian, Simon Kinberg, Ridley Scott, Michael Schaefer, and Mark Huffam, producers. The Revenant, Arnon Milchan, Steve Golan, Alejandro Gianniarritu, Mary Parent, and Keith Redman, producers. Room, Ed Guinea, producer. And Spotlight, Bly Pagan Faust, Steve Golan, Nicole Rockland, and Michael Sugar, producers. Now, the Oscar went to Spotlight, which tells the story of some restless writers for the Boston Globe as they uncover the scandal surrounding the Catholic Church and child abuse. And it's an excellent film, an excellent procedural, great performances, ensemble-driven, really precisely directed by Tom McCarthy. And it's a great pick. It's probably right outside my top 10 of that year. But my pick is definitely The Revenant. I was a Revenant guy in 2015. The film is excellent. It's the story of Hugh Glass, or Hugo Glass. I can't remember which one, but it was one of the two. He's a frontiersman in 1823, and he is left for dead after a bear attack ravages his body, and a Judas Iscariot amongst his ranks kills his wife and his son. And I thought that it was an excellent raw portrayal of total survival because he has to crawl on his hands and feet to survival after this point, and it's very emotional. Dominated by a great performance from Leonardo DiCaprio, some of his best work, if not his best. I think that there's another performance, but great work. That was my pick, was The Revenant. And Chase, you concur, correct?
Yeah.
So
If you want to ask me like what my favorite movie of 2015 was, it was The Revenant. So my pick is The Revenant.
there we go. And I'm going to say that that's probably the same thing, your favorite movie of the year for the next year, which was 2014. And the nominees for Best Picture were American Sniper, Clint Eastwood, Andrew Lazar, Robert Lorenz, Bradley Cooper, and Peter Morgan, producers. Birdman, or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance, Alejandro G. Iñárritu, John Lesher and James W. Scotchtopole, producers. Boyhood, Richard Linklater and Kathleen Sutherland, producers. The Grand Budapest Hotel, Wes Anderson, Scott Rudin, Stephen M. Rails, and Jeremy Dawson, producers. The Imitation Game, Nora Grossman, Ido Ostrowski, and Teddy Schwartzman, producers. Selma, Christian Coulson, Oprah Winfrey, Dee Dee Gardner, and Jeremy Kleiner, producers. The Theory of Everything, Tim Bevan, Eric Fellner, Lisa Bruce, and Anthony McCartan, producers. Whiplash, Jason Blum, Helen Estabrook, and David Lancaster, producers. Now, the Oscar went to Birdman, or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance, and I personally believe that the Academy got this one right. That was my number 3 of the year, and it was my highest ranked of the Best Picture nominees on my top 10, as people will remember from last week. So I think that this is the best film that was nominated, and I think that they went the right way with this. I really liked Boyhood and Whiplash, both made my top 10. And of course, American Sniper is kind of my controversial choice for my top 10. All excellent choices if they'd have made it. I think that I could have done without The Theory of Everything winning. That was definitely the weakest. But for me, yes, I do believe that Birdman was the right choice here. Chase, yours would have been Whiplash, of course, right?
You know what's really funny? Like if you pose the question as like Oscar winner, I would want Whiplash to do it, but there's like a little inkling in me that says that I wouldn't have minded if Boyhood would have been that pick, because I mean it was a very grand, epic drama, and it was on my top 10 that year, so I might have gone with that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that would have been a great choice. And in fact, it was kind of a 3-way race. Boyhood was one of those, and as well as Birdman and The Imitation Game. By the end, everybody was thinking, what if the Imitation Game kind of comes in and spoils everything. I like The Imitation Game. I don't know if it's Best Picture worthy.
I agree with you.
Good film. Yeah, it's kind of Argo-ish, and that's why people thought that it might come in an upset, whereas our next year was a pretty clear front runner. 2015 came down to between The Revenant and Spotlight, which ended up splitting director and picture, and then Birdman won both. But everybody was like, well, what if The Imitation Game wins? I mean, it was nominated for Best Director as well. It was a very, very popular movie. It won Best Screenplay, and I'll get to that months from now. But yeah, in any case, it was between those three. I think that they chose the right one. But yeah, Boyhood would have been a really exceptional choice as well. So, all right, then getting into the nominees for Best Picture of 2013, the nominees were American Hustle, Charles Roven, Richard Suckle, Megan Ellison and Jonathan Gordon, producers, Captain Phillips, Scott Rudin, Dana Brunetti, and Michael DeLuca, producers. Scott Rudin, man, giant producer. Dallas Buyers Club, Robbie Byrne and Rachel Winter, producers. Gravity, Alfonso Cuarón and David Heyman, producers. Her, Megan Ellison, Spike Jonze, and Vincent Landais, producers. So Megan Ellison had 2 movies as producer in the mix. Nebraska, Albert Berger and Ron Yerxa, producers. Philomena, Gabriel Tana, Steve Coogan, and Tracy Seward, producers. 12 Years a Slave, Brad Pitt, Dee Dee Gardner, Jeremy Kleiner, Steve McQueen, and Anthony Katagas, producers. And The Wolf of Wall Street, Martin Scorsese, Leonardo DiCaprio, Joey McFarland, and Emma Tillinger-Koskoff, producers. So the Oscar went to 12 Years a Slave, and this is a slight spoiler, I suppose, for my own top 10 or so of that year. I would have given this award to Her from director Spike Jonze. To what degree, I guess I'll leave that for the list. But yes, that would have been my choice. Now, 12 Years a Slave, of course, is the period piece, the dramatization of Solomon Northup's uh, enslavement and escape from that. Ultimately, after having been a free man, excellent story. It's really raw. It's it's on my top 10 of that year. But Her, which is about Joaquin Phoenix's character falling in love with an artificially intelligent computer system voiced by Scarlett Johansson, is the better film for me. It's the best film ranked among these, and it would have been my choice. So I guess I actually don't know what yours would have been this particular year. Was it 12 Years a Slave?
So I'm actually, excuse me. So I'm actually deciding between two of them, and 12 Years a Slave is not one of them. I love 12 Years a Slave.
Oh.
Definitely one of my favorite movie-going experiences that year because it just absolutely crushed my soul. I love when movies can just like make you angry throughout the entire thing and walk away just knowing that you saw a masterpiece in the making. But I would give it to either Her or Wolf of Wall Street as my personal pick out of the group. Now, I actually saw Her in January of the next year, so I didn't have it on my list because my rule is once January 1st hits, I don't do that. So Wolf of Wall Street was like the highest.
It would have been on your list, right?
Yes, it would have 100% been on my list, and I think Her would have actually went over Wolf of Wall Street, so I'm actually with you. I would have chosen Her.
Gotcha. All right. So the next year was 2012, and the nominees for Best Picture were Amour, Margaret Minagos, Stefan Arndt, Veit Haidushka, and Michael Katz, producers. Argo, Grant Heslov, Ben Affleck, and George Clooney, producers. Beasts of the Southern Wild, Dan Janvey, Josh Penn, and Michael Gottwald, producers. Django Unchained, Stacey Sher, Reginald Hudlin, and Pilar Savoni, producers. Life of Pi, Gil Netter, Ang Lee, and David Womark, producers. Les Miserables, Tim Bevan, Eric Fellner, Deborah Hayward, and Cameron McIntosh, producers. Lincoln, Steven Spielberg and Kathleen Kennedy, producers. Silver Linings Playbook, Donna Gigliotti, Bruce Cohen, and Jonathan Gordon, producers. And Zero Dark 30, Mark Bowl, Catherine Bigelow, and Megan Ellison, producers. Now, this award went to Argo, and in all deference to Argo, it's probably one of the lesser movies on that list for me. It's good. It's intense, despite being a true story. It's well acted all around. I like it. I don't think it deserved anywhere to be anywhere near Best Picture, but I would have gone with Lincoln, Steven Spielberg's film about Abraham Lincoln's attempt to pass the Emancipation Proclamation through Congress. And I love the film. It's one of the best screenplays written this decade, from Tony Kushner. Great playwright. Also wrote co-wrote Munich for Spielberg, and it's a great piece of work. I also would have loved to see something like Beasts of the Southern Wild or Zero Dark 30 win. Big fan of those. I would have rioted if Les Miserables won because I hate that movie. But in any case, that's one of my least favorite Best Picture nominees. It's kind of Bohemian Rhapsody level, honestly. But yeah. So that's what I would have gone with. Chase, I don't even know really where your favorites are of 2012, but of those, from the ones you've seen, if you haven't seen all of them, what would you have gone for?
Right. So the only one I have not seen still is Amour, but I've heard great things about it.
Okay.
So out of the ones I have seen, actually, no, I take that back. I never saw Les Miserables, or Less Miserables. Less Miserables. That is how you pronounce it. The white male critic version. I like Argo quite a bit. I like Lincoln. I know you're more favorable of that than I am. Silver Linings Playbook, great little drama. I love Zero Dark 30, but I would have actually gone with Django Unchained or Life of Pi. I don't know what it is about Life of Pi, but I absolutely love that movie. It struck me in a way of like watching like a Zemeckis movie, where like Zemeckis will take like these family-friendly type of like stories and concepts and really kind of like make it a little bit more mature, but also at the same time like families can enjoy it. And I kind of really dug that from Ang Lee. And then Django Unchained, I was actually talking about Tarantino the other day with someone, and no matter what he does, like his movies are always just damn entertaining. Like it like even if there's like a lot of negatives within his movies, like The Hateful Eight, Django Unchained, and then Joel, I'm blanking, and Inglourious Bastards, where like the modern Tarantino that we're in right now is even pulpier than what he's done before, but somehow he still has that spark in his writing that just makes you want to go in more and more and more with the movie. So I don't know, man. I would have given it to Django. I would have done it. Nice, and Waltz won that year for supporting actor, and didn't Tarantino? He was nominated for screenplay, right?
Yeah, he was nominated. I think
because he won for Bastards.
I think he. No, he didn't win for Bastards. He should have, and I'll get to that about probably 5 years from now. But he should have. He didn't. He lost. He lost that award to The Hurt Locker. But I think that I'm open on the Academy Award for Best Picture page, not the 20. Well, I guess I could click over here. He might have won. Let me see, because can't. Oh, nope. It just takes me. Oh, here it is. 85th Academy Awards. Oh, he did win. Yeah, he won.
Okay, cool.
He won.
So I mean,
I think he had also won for The Hateful Eight.
Right.
So that's what I was thinking.
That's a success for a Best Picture win. Is like you got your supporting actor win, you got a screenplay win. Like that would have been totally fine with me if Django won that year.
Nice. I do love Django Unchained. Pretty great movie. I think it's of those three kind of pastiche movies that he made, it's probably my least favorite by virtue of me just loving the other two, Hateful Eight and Inglourious Bastards more, but
I will agree with you on
really
that.
Strong work.
Yeah.
They're really strong work, all of them. So, all right. So then 2011, the nominees were The Artist, Thomas Langman, producer. The Descendants, Jim Burke, Alexander Payne, and Jim Taylor, producers. Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, Scott Rudin, producer. The Help, Brunson Green, Chris Columbus, and Michael Barr-Nathan, producers. Hugo, Graham King, and Martin Scorsese, producers. Midnight in Paris, Lady Aronson and Stephen Tenenbaum, producers. Moneyball, Michael DeLuca, Rachel Horovitz, and Brad Pitt, producers. The Tree of Life, Sarah Green, Bill Pohlad, Dee Dee Gardner, and Grant Hill, producers. And War Horse, Steven Spielberg and Kathleen Kennedy, producers. Now, of course, the Oscar this year went to The Artist. However, as much as I love The Artist, and I think that it was a fine winner, and in fact it is, spoiler, on my top 10 that year, for whenever we get there. It's a wonderful film. I would have gone with the heady kind of experimental one, which is The Tree of Life, and that's in my top 5. It's a great year for cinema. I don't know if it's quite, indicated by this list of movies, although there are a lot of really good ones here. Stuff like The Help and Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close is baffling among this list to me, and Midnight in Paris. I'm not really a fan of any of those. But I really like Hugo. I think Moneyball is a sharp screenplay. Really like that film. Probably some of the best film editing that year. The Descendants, very good, director of Sideways. But yeah, I would have gone with The Tree of Life. It's extremely personal for director Terrence Malick, and it's truly something else. It's of a different caliber than these other movies, I think. Just in terms, not only in terms of honestly quality, but just in terms of execution. It's much bigger and wider of scope. I don't think you've seen that one though, right?
So I'm really embarrassed. I have not seen The Descendants, Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, The Help, Tree of Life, or War Horse. So congratulations, I suck on this year. I've only seen half the movies.
Oh, okay. Well, of those kind of 5 or 4 or whatever, what was your favorite?
I'm kind of like with you. I think The Artist is a fine winner. I like it quite a bit. Love Hugo. I like Midnight in Paris, and I love Moneyball. If I had to pick, it would be either Moneyball or Hugo. And I think throwing kind of like a curveball, given the previous year's winner and 2012's winner, I think it would have been pretty nice to have like this kind of like epic family fantasy adventure known as Hugo. I think that would have been a pretty neat little pick.
I do love Hugo. That's right outside my top 10. Yeah. So with Moneyball, though, that's on my top 10.
Yeah, Moneyball is fantastic.
Movie. Yeah, great movie.
Speaking of Aaron Sorkin, oh boy, I wish 2010 would have gone a different way.
Yeah. Okay, so the nominees for 2010 were Black Swan, Scott Franklin, Mike Medavoy, and Brian Oliver, producers. The Fighter, David Hoberman, Todd Lieberman, and Mark Wahlberg, producers. Inception, Christopher Nolan and Emma Thomas, producers. The Kids Are All Right, Gary Gilbert, Jeffrey Levy-Hint, and Celine Rattray, producers. The King's Speech, Ian Canning, Emil Sherman, and Gareth Unwin, producers. 127 Hours, Danny Boyle, John Smithson, and Christian Coulson, producers. The Social Network, Dana Brunetti, Sean Chafin, Michael DeLuca, and Scott Rudin, producers. Toy Story 3, Darla K. Anderson, producer. True Grit, Joel Cohen, Ethan Cohen, and Scott Rudin, producers. And Winter's Bone, Alex Madigan and Ann Rossellini, producers. Now, all right. Guys, this is a really good list of nominees. I got to say that. The King's Speech won, and I don't really begrudge them of that. I love that movie. I think it's a great human I think it's a great human drama. It's got charm. It's got great performances from Colin Firth, Helena Bonham Carter, Jeffrey Rush, etc. But The Social Network should have won this. And I will just kind of say that it's absolutely one of my favorite films of the decade. So I'll let y'all kind of work out whether or not that means it's my number 1 of 2010. But yeah, it absolutely should have won. I mean, but again, this is a really strong list. I'm trying to look here. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of these movies in my top 10 of 2010. In various places. Now, The King's Speech is not on there. 127 Hours is not on there. The Fighter is not on there. So a couple of these are not on there. But this is a really strong list. And they're all fantastic movies, as far as I remember. There's a couple of these I haven't seen in a while. But absolutely, I've seen The Social Network recently. It's a magnificent piece of work. And it should have won. So... as much as I'm not one of the people who gets mad whenever they hear the words "the King's" and "speech," I do think that this was one of those years where the thing that everybody thinks should have happened absolutely should have happened. It should have been The Social Network. It was down between the two. The Social Network won more awards, I think, than The King's Speech did. Pretty sure. Although I know that Inception came out the most. So, whatever the case. It should have been The Social Network. And I know... how many of these have you seen?
So, the only one I haven't seen is Winter's Bone. I've seen everything else.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
So, I'm with you. 100% Social Network. But if I had to go, like second, third, fourth, and fifth pick, I would go Social Network, then Black Swan, because I'm a huge fan of Aronofsky. And yes, I'm one of those weird people that like Mother, even if it is... super in your face and really obvious with its thematic material, so don't at me, as the kids would say. My number 3 would actually go to Toy Story 3. Love that movie. Then Inception, then 127 Hours, then The Fighter, and then True Grit, King's Speech, Kids Are All Right. So, this is not a bad year. Like, all the ones I've seen are great movies. It's really hard to pick, but I think the specific like bite that you won from that Best Picture nominee that just like stands out above the rest, it's Social Network. Like I saw that in theaters and I was just blown away. That was my first ever experience of an Aaron Sorkin movie, like in theaters.
Oh, really?
Now I've seen Fincher up until that point with like Fight Club and Benjamin Button and Seven, all that stuff. So, once Social Network came out, I was like, oh, cool. Let's see how he tackles the Facebook movie. It was wonderful. So, but then,
that was my first Sorkin theater experience. I had watched Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip already.
Oh, okay.
I think over the course of early 2009, something like that. And so even before I watched The West Wing, and I've now seen everything, I think, except for Malice that he's been a part of. I think. Oh no, I haven't watched Sports Night, but although that's kind of hard to find. But yeah, I love Sorkin's writing. I think he himself can be kind of a Dumbo sometimes, but his writing is really sharp. And yeah, I mean, Social Network. Even if I wasn't trying to hint where this is in my top 10, I would just say it's the best screenplay of any movie in 2010. Even more so, I think, than Inception and all of the sort of the backbreaking work that screenplay does. I think that Social Network, the way it structures the story, I could go into this movie for like hours. I think it's worth studying in film classes. I think you could build a film class around this movie.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Just out of structure. And it's the best film editing, I think, of any movie in 2010. Yeah, it's the clear choice. And again, I don't begrudge them for choosing The King's Speech. It's right down their alley in terms of the emotions that it's going for and the story that it's telling. Absolutely worthy of a Best Picture winner, but it just came out of the wrong year, I think, almost, where there was this other thing that was so clearly. I think the movie that everybody's going to think of when they think of 2010 is The Social Network. And so, yeah, clear choice. All right, folks, so join me next week when I talk – not next week, next episode, I should say, because we're going to get into that in a second here. But when I talk about the best director choices, and that'll be very quick because a lot of them were the same here. But all right, so I guess we should tell them we're going to be gone for 3 weeks. Right? So,
well, don't make it sound so. It's 2 weeks. You're gonna miss two episodes. Yes, yeah. The only thing that's gonna happen between now and the last week in March is that I will have a mini review of Gloria Bell. But other than that, we will not have an episode until the last week in March, that will be the Us and Dumbo episode. But yes, it'll be a 2-week hiatus, which is fine. We'll regroup, and then trust me, I'm telling you right now, when it gets to April, Joel and I are going to be hitting the ground running at that festival, so we're going to be doing a lot of coverage for you guys. So I think it's okay if we take a little break, and I'm going out of town, so it worked out. So yeah, just letting you guys know. Hopefully this episode will tide you over because it's going to be a little dry on here for a couple weeks.
Yeah, which is totally fine. Hope you have a good couple weeks off and out of town, and you're at a wedding, right?
Yes, sir. It is my brother's wedding.
Yes, that's what I thought.
So I'm the best man, so I get to give that speech. And if my girlfriend can film it, that she's going to share it with people like Joel and other people in our lives, and I'm hoping it is absolutely just epic.
There we go. All right. Yeah, like he said, the next episode will be on March 29th or something, and we'll be reviewing Us, the new Jordan Peele movie, and Dumbo, Tim Burton's recreation, which is the movie that's the Disney recreation of an old property that I'm most excited for this year, and I never thought I'd say that, but it absolutely is. I think it looks pretty epic. I can't wait for that. So, very excited. Until then, you can follow me on Twitter at RealJoelCopling. That's REL Joel Copling. I'll have a review of Captain Marvel up probably by tomorrow morning sometime, hopefully, if I'm feeling up to it. And you can follow me on Letterboxd at jcopling, etc. Chase, where can people find you?
Yeah, if you guys want to follow me on Twitter, it's at RealChaseley, and then of course the podcast Twitter handle is RealMeInPodcast. And if you guys want to nowhere else we're at, in terms of this podcast. We are in, Spotify, CastBox, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spreaker. We're everywhere. So please, wherever you find us, we really appreciate it, and just let people know about us. So that is episode 269. Hopefully, next episode, I won't be dying on air. I know that was probably not pleasant to the ears, me just coughing and hacking, but it is what it is, and I think after doing this for 2 hours, my voice is going to want to leave my body. So, yeah, really apologize for that, but I hope you guys have a great couple weeks. And, look out for the mini review of Gloria Bell. But other than that, the next episode will not happen until March 29th. We hope you guys have a good day, good night, whenever you're listening to this. And we'll see you guys for the next one. Let us know about Captain Marvel and all your thoughts about this episode down below or wherever. If you want to personally message us, I know a couple people do that. Go ahead and do it. And that is Joel over there. I am Chase. See you guys next time for another episode of Real Me and Colin, a movie podcast. Bye-bye.
Bye.